Alrighty, Titus wanted a tier list about Lord cost effectiveness. Now, this doesn't just mean like the best Lord. You know, oh, he costs 3,000 gold and he can beat up on a 1,000 gold Lord. Very cool, very, very good analysis. It is factoring in that cost is the main point. I mean, the tier list explains for itself. Amazing for their cost, all the way down to horrible for their cost. What do we have? Let's get through it. Alberic de Bordelot, honestly, worth about his cost. Now, shush. Alberic is not the best Bretonnian Lord. He doesn't have his own self-healing. He can be kind of expensive at times, but he actually is a pretty decent duelist. Against low leadership factions, his Trident of Manon is very, very good. The -8 leadership debuff on it can provide a lot of utility. I especially like it in the Bretonnian versus Skaven matchup, and really good Bretonnian players such as Blood Penguin have been making good use of Alberic versus me. So he's situational, but he's about worth his cost. You just don't see him that often because, you know, he's specific to a matchup, and then also the next lady, the one I'm literally hovering over, is better in almost all situations. The Enchantress, I'm going to put her in good for her cost. It's between that and amazing, but I'm going to go with good because in Warhammer 3, she is much more vulnerable to just getting sniped out. She's not that expensive. She's a cheap Mortis Engine, cheap caster, but she's pretty shit duelist and not as tanky as she was in other iterations of the game. So I'm going to put her down for good for her cost. But compared to Alberic, she's like, if you take the Fae in a matchup, you are generally making the right decision. So she's just good. King Lewin, bad for their cost. Not terrible. He has some functions, but I think his kit is normally like 2,400 gold, which is just not worth it. He has self-healing and he's a very middling duelist, but that's all he brings for a giant cost. Lord sucks. Horrible for his cost. He's pretty cheap, but he also provides nothing, so screw that guy. Prophetess, about worth their cost. If the Fae Enchantress wasn't just better, they would be fine. Not a lot of analysis there. They're a cheap caster lord. They do cheap caster lord things. Sweet. Rapunzel, horrible for her cost. Rapunzel, I have the game up on the other screen here. Rapunzel's base on her horse with the kit I would take her with is 1,500, which is just absolutely insane for how terrible of a character she is. So, horrible for her cost, just provides nothing besides being a worse duelist than Lewin, with less utility and no self-healing. It's tragic. Beast Lord. Nah, worth about his cost, honestly. You do see some Beastman builds every so often that just have a Beast Lord in them, because what does he have here? Hold on. He has the Horn of the First Beast plus Apocalyptic Visions, which can give a combined 48 melee attack and about 24 leadership. But if you stagger him, that is just 24 melee attack twice. That can help out with like Minobus charges or Centaur charges or something like that. Beast Lord's not bad. There's just other really good lords. Kazric, I'm going to put him in bad for his cost. He's just a little more expensive than he needs to be. He's kind of kitted as this like infantry clearing guy. Maybe a bit of a duelist, but he's not really that good at any of them. If Chariots get fixed, maybe I'll reassess Kazric, but for now he is subpar. Malagor, I think he's worth about his cost. I like Malagor as a lord, but I wouldn't go as far to say like good for his cost or that he's like super cost effective. He's just fine. He's nice for wide beastmen armies if you want, if you don't want to have a caster in a hero slot or something. But he doesn't have Traderkin, which is their best spell right now. And this is of patch 3.0, by the way. So I'd put him about there. I don't think he needs like nerfs or anything. Morgur, let's go good for his cost. Chaos Spawn summons are still very, very nice. Good disruption pieces, good unit overall. Yeah, he's just quite solid. His own self-regen and his tankiness make him a formidable opponent. Keeps him in the game. So, he's good. Doombull, fine. It's fine for its cost. Torox is usually better, but I've seen some use of the Doombull, though he has been underwhelming. Is he cheap? Hold on, that'll be the deciding factor if he's a cheap boy. Slaughter's Call, and then he's just 1,400. Yeah, that's fine. He's fine. Great Bright Shaman. I'd say good for their cost. Yeah, good for their cost. Though he has Forbidden Rod, which sucks. Doesn't have the best spells. Downgrading him, he's worth his cost. It's not amazing. He's fine. Cheap spellcaster. That's going to come up every so often. Torox is worth his cost. Now, before you get mad at me, Torox costs 2,000 gold now with a good kit. That's pretty spency. He gets good work done, but he's also pretty spency, which evens out. He is a good lord. I don't think he's like a middling tier lord, but considering cost as a factor, yeah, he's mid. I think Morgar's a little more bang for your buck. But Torox does very different things. Like, Morgar can't take over a game like Torox can in certain situations. Astrogoth is amazing for his cost. You know why. You don't need me to talk about it. That shit's nuts. Just look at his stat line as of patch 3.0 and end of story. Drazoth, I think he's good for his cost. He's not as good as Astrogoth, but, like, without comparing him to Astrogoth, he's fine. He's really cheap. Has the lore of Hashit. Has damage resistance and melee reflection item for all around 1,300 gold. That's the kit I usually take him with. I don't take him on his mount. His mount, Cinder Breath, being 1,200 gold to get him on that thing, super not worth it. But on foot, he's alright. So I think he's good for his cost. Basic Overseer. I don't even know what this guy does. Let me take a look. Dog shit. Okay. Horrible for his cost. 1,400 gold for an extremely underwhelming character, and you could put him on an expensive-ass mount to make him underwhelming in other places, but no. Just no. Trash. The Great Shaman is okay. He's okay. I do think he's generally a little overcosted. Yeah, looking over stuff now, I don't know. He has a nice little heal if somebody casts a spell on you within reach, but you have to make him super expensive to make that worth it. I don't know. I think he's bad for his cost. He's not a terrible lord, like he's useful in certain situations, but with your other options, the Sorcerer Prophet's It's like, you might need him, but it doesn't feel good to pay for him, is my point. Zaton? Terrible. Zaton's terrible. His kit's okay, but his cost is completely unjustified. With the stuff you would want to even take on him, like if you're taking him, you want to take the snare, and you probably want to take the leadership debuff and stuff. This guy's 1650 on foot, which just isn't worth it. And he's not a caster, so you're going to have to take an expensive caster hero. Nah. No. Unfortunately, Zaton sucks. What the heck is this? Since it's next to Arcan, I have to assume it's just a Warriors of Chaos. Is it just a Chaos Lord? Okay, I'm going to go under the assumption that it's just a Chaos Lord. Chaos Lord! Oh, not terrible. Not that good either. I'd put him here. Yeah, I'd put him here. Ooh, no, it's not the caster one. Never mind, trash. He's trash. He has some okay abilities and stuff, but he's just really expensive. Really expensive. And I guess he has decent stats. He has decent stats. There's a lot better on the roster, though. I'm still going to put him in the horrible for his cost. Because he is spency, and then you need a caster hero, which the Chaos Sorcerer hero is fine, but not great. Archaon! Worth about their cost. Again, as we have highlighted several times in this list so far, Archaon's incredible. Archaon is a very, very, very good unit. He's so great. He's the best duelist in the whole game. His lore of magic is awesome. He has like a triple mixed lore with all of the best spells. Well, not all of the best spells, but a ton of the best spells, amazing items, all that shit. This dude's also 3,000 gold. So, yeah, he puts in a ton of work. He puts in 3,000 gold worth of work. Sigvald, I'm going to say amazing for his cost. Now, Sigvald isn't the best Warriors of Chaos Lord. I do think that is Archaon, but he is definitely the cheapest and gives you the most bang for your buck. You do have to take a caster alongside him, so that is kind of factored in, but Sigvald himself, everybody knows it. Really strong, melee, infantry-sized regen lord, impossible to kill in several situations. He's very, very amazing for his cost. Way cheaper than he should be. He definitely needs cost increases. And I guess like that is an easier way of describing it. Everybody above the middle probably needs cost increases. Everybody below it probably needs cost reductions if that was the only way you're going to balance them. I think Archaon, for example, is costed about where he should be. I think Archaon's functioning as intended. Kolak Suneater. Bad for his cost. Is he horrible, though? Let me take a look. What is your base cost these days? Alright, he's hot garbage for his cost. Yeah, he doesn't have as high of a health pool as he needs to be like a big monster. He's not as fast as he needs to catch a lot of like horse lords and stuff. I don't know. Kolak needs some help, or he needs to be at least a cheaper smash stick thing. But yeah, for his cost, unfortunately, Kolak is probably horrible. Sartorial, absolutely horrible for his cost. He got so many nerfs coming into Warhammer 3 that it doesn't even bear talking about, but he's squishy, he sucks, and he's still like 3,000 gold. He's price comparable with Archaon, and Archaon can carry a whole game. What the fuck is this? This is Chaos Sorcerer Lord? I'm singing this is Chaos Sorcerer Lord. That's the one that I think is good for its cost. Yeah, if they have the items, I think they do. Get out of the way, you. Okay, yeah. They have the Tormentor Sword, except for the Lord of Shadows. The Lord of Shadows has two different items for some reason, but the Lord of Metal, Fire, and Death have the Tormentor Swords. They have a net to get themselves out of trouble. They have dragon mounts or manticore mounts or horse mounts for a variety of things. Really good Lords of Magic. I do think they are good for their cost. They're cheaper, so they're not going to carry the game as hard for you, but they're good. They're good for their cost. Aranessa, Saltspite, bad for their cost. Not horrific. I have seen people like Race use Aranessa okay for her net abilities, but other than that, she's very asynergistic with a bunch of her roster and therefore needs to be like really, really cheap to be worth it. And she's just cheap. She's not a discount. Noctilus, I'm going to say worth about his cost. Very common, very good Lord for the Vampire Coast. Also quite expensive. He's fine. Luther Harkon, bad for his cost. He needs better dueling stats, and he needs more damage, because the shift to ultra unit size hurt him, and he still costs as much as he used to, so he's just a little overexpensive for a meh duelist. Pistol Caster for the Vampire Coast, good for their cost. She's just cheaper and a better magic caster than Noctilus, though she is less tanky in melee. She's still fine. Celastra, worth about her cost, or bad for her cost. I don't know. She's too expensive for what she does, but I'm flipping between the two. I do like her for her summon and her Lore of Magic, but on her Giant Crab, she is like 3,000 goldish. Yeah, I'm going to put her in bad for her cost, but I still use her sometimes because I really like her. Yeah, she's like 3,000 gold. Good God. Yeah, that's unfortunately putting her in that category. Polearms guy, what are your special abilities? I think you're in the bad for your cost, but let me do a quick review. Polearm. All hands ahoy, Wand of Jet. Yeah. He's okay. He's like... He does a ton of melee buffs and melee debuffs, but if the coast was a better melee faction, that would matter. So he's like a melee lord that buffs other melee units on a roster with nothing to back him up. So I think he's overcosted because he doesn't save you that much money, unfortunately. Zhao Ming! Oh boy, I'm flipping back and forth between bad for his cost and worth about their cost. I'll go with worth about their cost. Because as a Dragon Lord and a Hybrid Caster, he is pretty solid at those things. He's a decent duelist. His problem is just no healing, but that's not his fault. And he is cheaper than Miao Yang. So I'll give it to him on that front. How much does he even cost? 2,900, but if you cut his spells down... Yeah, he's okay. He's fine. He's fine for his cost. I think the Lord Magistrate is good for his cost. He has some really, really nice buffs for units around. There's just better lords to go with. Dragonblood Ashugi Lord is good for their cost. Cheap, even after the nerfs, they are still a pretty good duelist for their cost bracket and a nice cheap caster. Yao Ying is amazing for her cost because she's a giant dragon lord, but also has some of the best crowd clearing. God, that was hard to say. Best crowd clearing spells in the whole game, and she has healing for herself, and she can turn into a giant dragon duelist. But plus, she's a good foot duelist for smaller targets the dragon can have troubles getting to. Miao Ying is incredible for her cost. Even though she's more expensive than Zhao Ming, she's still like the best. Azazel, I'm gonna take a risk. I'm gonna say bad for their cost. Azazel's too squishy for how expensive he is. He makes your Slaanesh army a little too narrow to really chase off stuff that he manages to route. And I think his ability to duel was wildly overhyped. He kind of sucks. And fight me on that. He's terrible. Be'lakor, another fight me moment. But Be'lakor might be bad for his cost now. He got several nerfs plus a cost increase or decrease. God, I forget if he got a cost increase or decrease. Whatever. He got a couple nerfs and a couple buffs. But overall, Be'lakor has been feeling a little too expensive for what you need him to do. The rest of his army is really weak. And especially on the Warriors of Chaos roster where he used to rely on Hellstriders to clean up a lot of the stuff he routed. The Hellstrider nerfs hit them hard, so the Warriors of Chaos don't dominate the mobile game so much. So he just routes stuff and it comes back eventually and whittles them down. I don't know. If you disagree, too bad. I'm right all the time, but I think he's bad for his cost. Exalted Bloodthirster, bad for his cost. Not terrible, but just kind of a flying duelist that costs way too much. But I don't know. Khorne needs some flyers, so bad first cost, not the worst. Herald of Slaanesh, another hot take. She is my favorite kitted lord on Slaanesh. She's the most fun to play with. She's also not at all worth her cost. With, like, the kit I want to bring, her on a Steed of Slaanesh with the Summon, Arcane Conduit, Locus of Grace, Soul Siphon, and then 1 or 2 spells. She's like a 2,000 gold lord, and she loses combat to almost anybody due to her tiny armor stat, relatively low health pool. Yeah, she just doesn't bring a lot for being 2,000 gold. I think that person sucks. Fat Boy of Nurgle. Worth about his cost. I mean, he's pretty easy to shoot, but that's just Nurgle in a nutshell, isn't it? Outside of that, pretty good Lords of Magic, nice Mortis Engine, really good Duelist. He's fine. He's worth about his cost. He's super expensive, that's fine. Exalted Lord Change, same position, same reasons. Is fine for his cost. He's pretty expensive, but he does a lot for you. He's good. Festus, worth about their cost, also. Cheap-ish, very squishy, easy to kill, but if you don't kill him, he has good support abilities, and he's nice and cheap. When Nurgle wants to go with a wider army without paying for Kugoth or an Exalted Grid and clean one, Festus is a decent option. He's nice. Herald of Khorne, also worth about his cost. Just no complaints. Good buff lord, really bad at dueling, but that's not really his whole shtick. Herald of Tzeentch, I think he's good for his cost. I think people undervalue the Herald of Tzeentch in favor of Kairos. Like, Kairos is incredible, but I think that makes the Herald of Tzeentch get put in the background. He's pretty cheap. Has 2 of the best mana regen items in the entire game. Up on his disc, he'd be relatively safe, yeah. Herald of Tzeentch, real good. Real good. Kairos Feetweaver, amazing for their cost. That is usually why the Herald's overshadowed, is Kairos is not that cheap, but he provides so much that it way overdoes his cost. Because how much is the Kairos kit everybody keeps bringing? Kairos, get rid of all those. Because his items are baits. Don't take his items, they're not worth it. But if you just take Regrowth, Blue Fire, Life Leeching, maybe Fires of Change, but you can probably cut that. What does that leave you with? 2,500? That's more expensive than it should be. I think maybe you just cut Fires of Change. Oracle of Eternity, maybe cut that too. Get him down to like 2,300. But he's a terror-causing, amazing spellcaster. Has frickin' Regrowth on the Tzeentch roster, which is nuts. I don't know. Kairos is insane. He's insane. He also has mostly armor piercing, because reasons. Exalted, the Keeper of Secrets? Trash. Utter trash. Tiny armor, low health pool, very tall and easy to shoot. Not that good in melee combat. Just trash. Super expensive. Garbage. Chaos Lord of Khorne? Trash. I think that's who that's supposed to be. And if so, he's just bad. Not a whole lot to say on him. I'm pulling him up right now. Fight or die, Paragon of Carnage, but the Paragon of Carnage, he has to be the one getting the kills to stack it up, and it takes stolen games usually over by then. He has some leadership buffs, and he has 2 different abilities that scale with his kills that he gets, but he has no mounts that allow him to get a lot of kills quickly. Other than that, he's just expensive. He has okay melee stats, but not enough for his cost, so he's garbage. What is this, a Demon Prince of Khorne? Not trash, but not good. Bad for their cost. I think that's about where he falls. He's about as expensive as Scarbrand or an Exalted Bloodthirster-ish, but just provides less because he's not a breath attacks or who's good of stats, so. Kugoth Plaguefather, worth about his cost. He costs an arm and a leg, but he can literally solo out armies if they lack the tools to deal with him, so he's worth about his cost. He's pretty good. Nikari, trash for their cost. Same reason as everybody else, but Nikari can cost like 4,000 gold. Let me find him. Yeah, Nikari starts at 4,000. If you cut some spells, if you take 2 spells, let's say, still 3,500, which is just insane. He's too easily sniped out. He sucks. The Lord of Nurgle guy, he's pretty good. He has a self-heal, armored, decent melee combatant. The Lord of Nurgle, cheap-ish, solid. Demon Prince of Nurgle, bad for their cost. Most of the Demon Princes are just going to suffer from this. They're really expensive for providing not a lot. Herald Nurgle, I'm also going to put here, maybe in horrible. It's either in bad or horrible. I'm going to put him in horrible. Screw it. Herald Nurgle sucks. He's really expensive, like all the Heralds are, but he's just not... He's not as impactful as the Herald of Khorne is on the rest of his army. It's like, I can kind of regen. Okay, every other Nurgle Lord can, and some of them carry the fucking game, so you figure it out. Demon Prince of the Demons of Chaos, trash. Scarbrand, bad for their cost. He's a little too expensive. He needs, I've talked about it on stream at length, but he needs an identity. He needs to either be a better duelist, a better crowd clearer, or he needs to be tankier. Not all three of those things, but he needs one of them, and right now he's just kind of middling. Oh, is this a Chaos Lord of Slaanesh or Sorcerer Lord of Slaanesh? I'm going to go with Chaos Lord of Slaanesh. Worth about their cost. He has some pretty good DUF spells. I used him recently versus the Dark Elves. He's fine. He's fine. The rest of his roster's struggling, but he's decidedly okay. He's cheap, doesn't do a lot. That's fine. Demon Prince of Slaanesh, horrible for their cost. Same reasons as above. Chaos Lord of Tzeentch, worth about their cost. Maybe trash. No, they have the Chaos Mods. They're fine. Demon Prince of Tzeentch, trash. Same reasons we talked about for all the other Demon Princes. All right, Valkia. Oh, good for her cost. Really solid duelist. Very, very tanky. Being infantry-sized and flying kind of makes her unique, where like she just feels like her model doesn't work correctly. Sometimes she'll land on stuff and just take no damage from stuff that should have at least hit her a couple times. Spear Slapnir is really good. She's super cheap. Very, very good for her cost. Village, fuck you. He's fine for his cost. Village is great. The rest of you are just haters. Village is amazing. He just stands around, does good stuff, builds up more melee stats, regen shields around him. Village is great. Village is awesome. I think he's also a little spency, though, so I'm going to put him in the middle. Beastmaster, I literally don't know what this character does. Let's take a look. Anti-large, base cost of 1,400. Bonus versus large aura. No, not an aura, it just affects him. Oh, okay, that's pretty trash. He has a bonus. He has Whiplash, a bonus he can apply if unit's not a lord or hero. And he has the Tormentor's Sword. He's just too expensive. He's just too expensive. He doesn't do anything. Alright, that guy sucks. Lokir, he's about what he should be cost-wise. You just don't see him a ton because the Dark Elves have a lot of good lords. Cornhellebron's way too bad. Way too bad for how expensive she is. Tiny armor, tiny health pool, makes it super easy to snipe her out. Don't even know what this character is. It's a Dreadlord, sword and crossbow. Oh no. Oh no. Those are trash. Okay. Yeah, he sucks. He's not that expensive, but he brings literally nothing to the fight. Nolosi is a little bit better, at least. The Dreadlord sword and shield. Yeah, she has some buff spells and stuff like that. I'm going to put her at bad for her cost, but not egregiously terrible. Malekith is amazing for his cost. We talked about that at length. So is Malice. Malice gets 2 health bars at the price of 1. They are both expensive, but they can also carry entire games for you. Marathi, bad for her cost right now. She's just too squishy, unfortunately. Like, she had her time in Warhammer 2 where she was mega OP, but now she's rather expensive, and if she lands, she gets punished really easily. So, unfortunately, Marathi's just not feeling the best. Rakarth, I'm going to probably put him in the bad for your cost. I would put Marathi closer to worth your cost than horrible, but I would put Rakarth closer to horrible than bad. But, like, well, you know what I mean there. But Rakarth, he's a little too expensive for what he does. I have seen some replays of him doing relatively okay recently, but I don't know. He just needs to be a bit cheaper if he's a combat-only lord. Supreme Sorceress of Blank, very, very good for their cost. Not amazing, but very good. Quite cheap. Actually, no, wait. Amazing for their cost because of the Black Dragon. On her Black Dragon mount, she's cheaper than a regular Black Dragon, and she can take Soul Stealer and do a lot of stuff Malekith does for like 600 gold cheaper. She's insane. Belgar, bad for his cost. Grombrindle, bad for his cost. Runelord, horrible for his cost. Thorgrim, horrible for his cost. Ungrim, bad for his cost. Lord, horrible for his cost. All of those things, all the duelist lords, the melee lords, whatever, they can't pick a fight of their own volition. They maybe have a little bit of a slow, looking at you, Grombrindle, but they are the slowest roster in the entire game, so they walk menacingly at something, and whatever it is just walks away from them. End of stories. You're paying a lot for a pretty meh duelist with a small health pool and an inability to pick his own fights. Runelord is just Thoric, but worse. Very expensive, not a good fighter, easy to snipe. Thorgrim Grudgebearer only gives buffs to things nearby him for dumbass reasons. Thoric, Ironbrow, amazing for his cost. Has a better Vuvuzela call out than Imric. Global plus 24 melee attack buff, and it's on a cooldown. It's not even limited by anything. He has infinite magic cast because you can never run out of wind of magics. The dwarves. He has a better than perfect vigor aura, ITP aura. If you cast anywhere nearby him, you take a bunch of damage. He has armor-piercing magic damage, really high melee stats, really high armor, better speed than a lot of other dwarven things, really high health pool, but a low enough profile that missiles don't hit him as well as you think they should. Thoric is redonkulous. Archlector. Bad for the cost? What does that guy even have for supportive tools that, like, Volkmar doesn't? What do you even do? Okay, all the grand stuff. Then we have the Mace of Hellstrom that buffs his non-arm piercing melee. Okay, yeah, that sucks. This guy's down there. He's just horrible. He doesn't provide anything, so there's not a lot to talk about. Gelt, I'm gonna put Gelt in worth for your cost. Metal is a good lore, and he's the only sorcerer lord for the Empire. So if you want to go super wide and not pay for a melee lord and a caster hero, Gelt's your guy, and I have been enjoying Gelt a lot. I think he's good for his cost. Boris Todbringer, good for his cost. He provides, well, no, more worth. Yeah, worth. Because he has 2,400 gold with his good kit, but he provides a lot of nice buffs, and he can route off lower leadership factions very well. So I'd say he's about worth his cost. He is a middling duelist, unfortunately. Franz! I think he's bad for his cost. Franz is a fine character, he's just a little overcosted, and he's gotten power crept over the years. Like, there's way better duelists than Franz for less money, unfortunately. So he just needs a little bit of a cost reduction. I think he'll be fine. Because he's a good stat stick. He can hit some stuff in the face, but not for his cost point. I think he's around like 2,600 gold. Let's just pull him up. Deathclaw and all that stuff. Yeah, 2,600. Rip. Volkmar, also feeling the bad for your cost. Changes in Warhammer 3. He does have self-regen, he's unbreakable and that kind of stuff, but Soulfire Bombardment doesn't clear out infinite infantry like it used to, and he's a pretty meh duelist now that hitboxes got fixed. People can actually just hit him in the mouth. Generally, Empire sucks, doesn't really provide anything good. Hunts Marshal, I'm not sold. I know some really high-level players like to take just butt naked of Hunts Marshal for a super cheap lord, but I'm not sold on it. I'm going to say bad for their cost, but not horrible. Marcus Wolfhard, worth about his cost or bad? I'm going to take the unpopular position of saying he's bad for his cost. He doesn't do anything. He just brings a net, but his range attacks are pretty middling at best. Some of his abilities are okay, but you mostly just take him for the net and then trying to have your lord not get sniped. But I don't know. Whenever my opponent takes Marcus Wolfhard, it's annoying because I can't kill him, but it's never like, Marcus Wolfhard won you that game. It's just like, okay. I mean, Marcus Wolfhard was around. Azhag. Worth about their cost, I guess. I think he's very expensive, but a lot of greenskin players keep telling me that he is fine, so I guess I'll agree with them. But that boy expensive. And he doesn't have that high of a health pool. And he's not that good of a duelist. But whatever. Death Magic's strong, I guess. And greenskins, if you have a flying lord unexpectedly, that can change things, I guess. Grimgor, bad for his cost. Amazing duelist. But can't pick, same as a lot of the arguments about the dwarves. He can't pick his own fights, so if that, like, you kind of need the benefit of him being cheap, and he's not. Skarsnik, worth about his cost. Nice rampage, nice buffs, tanky, cheap. Wurzag, how do I get you all the way up there? Boom, good for his cost. Wurzag's really, really good for his cost. The only thing that keeps him out of the amazing for his cost is how easy he is to snipe with his low health pool, but I think Wurzag's the best greenskin lord. Goblin Shaman, worth about his cost. They can be cheap unless they're on their Spider Lord, and then you're paying a lot for a big Spider Lord, so it's fine. Grom the Paunch, worth about their cost. He's fine if you don't want to get sniped. He's okay. He's all right. Goblin Big Boss, worth about his cost. I agree. He is cheap, and he provides some support, but that's about it. Orc War Boss, trash for their cost. Super expensive, doesn't provide as much utility as the Goblin War Boss, but then is a shit combatant, so what's the point? What's the point of you? Alarielle costs about what she should these days. She provides a lot of healing and support, but with all healing being super jacked up, it's not like she stands out that much. She's fine. She's fine for a cost. I don't think she needs nerfs. Like, she's a good lord. Alistair the White Lion, he's not a lord, so he's campaign exclusive, therefore he's horrible for his cost because you can't even take him, so that's a lie. Lethanar, bad for his cost. Same as Marcus Wolfhard, I just don't really feel his impact these days. Archer lords don't seem to do enough DPS to really keep up on Ultra. Archmage of Blank, I'm going to put her in good for their cost. Not OP. But she is very, very cheap. They have a ton of lores of magic, and on an Eagle caster, they're a surprisingly good duelist. Low health pool. Eltharion, horrible for his cost. All the positive things I said about that lady, none of them apply to Eltharion. He's more expensive, so sucks. Imric, worth about their cost. But Imric carries a lot of games. Yeah, he's also like 3,000 gold, and he's not a caster, so you need another caster, so you're spending about 4,500 gold between your lord and your hero slot. He better carry the fucking game at that point. High Elf Prince is fine. He's got a lot of... Oh, yeah, that's not the fine, is it? He's there-ish. Wherever the hell he ended up. There we go. He has some good buffs for himself. Dragon Lord, and he's fine. But expensive. But fine. He's fine. I think the princess is bad for her cost. I don't think she's that good. She can have a dragon mount, but her melee stats are underwhelming. She's very expensive. Tierlist, worth about his cost. Very, very expensive, but a mixed lore of magic and some decent buff abilities. He's fine. Tyrion, bad for his cost. Needs cost reduction. Otherwise, he's fine. He's a duelist lord, but he's only good at like 1v1ing specific characters. Doesn't have anti-large or anything like that. Boyar, I'm going to say bad for our cost, though we have been seeing him a little bit more recently. His Axe of Tor got some buffs and is doing okay. Still relies pretty heavily on your opponent having armored infantry for him to target with it. Otherwise, he's kind of worthless. Boris Ursus, I'm going to go with bad for our cost. He is so expensive. He is an amazing duelist. He's so expensive, though. He relies heavily on having a Patriarch as a healer for him. And if you have a Patriarch as a healer, you still don't have a caster. So then you need a caster as well. Boris is fine if you give him everything to succeed. But then, I don't know. He just needs to be cheaper since you have to bring all these supports with him. I think Boris is meh. Ice Witch, I also think is meh. Yeah, she's meh. Sometimes you have to take her, but she's not that great. Zarina, I'm debating whether she's worth about her cost or bad. I'm going to say worth because I think some of her items are really good, but I could see an argument for her being bad. She's between these two. Gestalten, I'm going to go with bad for the cost. Very expensive. Has worse items at regeneration than the Patriarch does. All in a Lord slot for more cost than a Patriarch is. I don't know. His melee stats are meh. And he does fire damage, which there's a lot of stuff with fire resist out there these days. Croxcore Ancient. Bad for the cost. Not terrible, but just not very good. And that's the end of that sentence. Gorok. Hi, I'm Sigvald, but I don't have regen, so get fucked, I guess. Krokar, I'm going to go with bad for his cost. Hand of the Gods has taken some hits in Warhammer 3. It just doesn't do that much damage. Other than that, you have an expensive T-Rex Duelist Lord. That's just meh. Is that Mazdamundi or generic Slann? Okay, it's Mazdamundi specifically. He's worth about his cost. He's expensive, but he can clear out a lot of stuff. He's good support Slann. Good lore of magic. He's fine. Source Oldblood, gonna put him in the horrible for his cost. Just get Krokar. Krokar's better in almost every way. Over the Source Oldblood is just expensive. Nikai, also very expensive, doesn't bring a lot, unfortunately. His Perfect Vigor Trinket is outdone by other items in the game. Oxyotl, horrible for his cost. He's not that expensive, but like, this dude, it does no fucking damage in Warhammer 3, so he's literally a worthless lord. Just don't take him. Right Crisis King Chief, I'd say good for his cost. He's cheap. He's a good little duelist friend. I have been souring on him recently. I used to have a love affair with this guy, but his low health pool has gotten me fucked over in a couple matchups that I'm very sad about. Oh my god, there's so many lords in this game. I think the basic Slann is good for their cost. Blood Statue of Despite and Bound Banishment allows them to clear out a lot of hordes, plus they have giant health pools. They're relatively cheap, and they have a ton of great lords of magic. Slans, real good. Tehennawyn, horrible for its cost. Expensive, bad. Got it. Tic-Tac-Toe, bad for its cost. Expensive, flying, meh. Combatant, meh. Throg, worth about his cost. He's a good lord and I like him a lot, but he is spency for a regen armor-piercing lord. Yeah, he's good. Wolfric, bad for the cost. Expensive, has some decent crowd-clearing spells, but his leadership is ass for no reason at all, and his mounts are meh at best. Don't like it. Ronda Chieftain, worth about his cost. He's cheap, doesn't do much. That tracks. Grease's Goldtooth, horrible for their cost. Decent duelist lord, but at such a high price point, then you're gonna have to take a caster to support him, and he needs healing. Meh. Scrag the Slaughter, bad for his cost. He is a caster, and he does have armor-piercing anti-infantry. He can be okay in a lot of situations with the Slaughtermaster. The Great Maw is just generally better. Slaughtermaster, worth about his cost. Dogshit melee combatant, but he's a caster lord. He's okay. Relatively cheap-ish. He's fine. He has some good items. Tyrant, I think bad for his cost. Has some decent support abilities, kind of, but he's billed to you as a melee combat lord and just doesn't fill that slot. Master Assassin, also bad for their cost. Some decent debuff items, good supportive types abilities, but they have issues throwing their shurikens, and when they do throw their shurikens, they suffer from a lot of the bow lord problems. They just don't do a lot of damage, so who gives a shit? Gracier, good for their cost. Nice, cheap, especially on their bell mount. Can be hard to snipe out. Good lores. Trash duelist, but that's fine. Ikit Claw, amazing for their cost. Has amazing crowd clearing potential. Is really good lore of magic. Currently with Flensing Ruin. Yeah, no complaints. Ikit's amazing for their cost. Skrulk, I think Skrulk's good for his cost. Nice, cheap center point for your army. Has a lot of good spells, a lot of good abilities. Queek is horrible for his cost. He's just too expensive. He costs closer to Torox than he costs, like, closer to Torox than Marcus Wolfheart, and that tells you more of what you need to know. He's like 1,800 gold fully kitted out, and he loses to Astrogoth in melee. Deathbed Snitch, worth about his cost. He's expensive-ish, and he's very squishy, but used right, he can get a lot of damage out, so he's pretty good. Throughout the Unclean is bad for his cost. You can get 2 Brood Horrors, the Warlord on a Brood Horror mount and a Packmaster on a Brood Horror for the same cost as Throt, which is dumb. That is dumb. Tretch is also bad for his cost. He provides some meh buffs, and he's tanky-ish, but he's also cheap. Warlock Master, I would also put up with Ikit Claw for all the same reasons, but he's even better at regenerating Winds of Magic than Ikit, though he is slightly more expensive, so I put them both up in the same bracket. Warlord, good for his cost. He's good. On his Brood Horror mount especially, he's super cheap. He's 200 gold cheaper on his Brood Horror mount, and he's a better duelist and as regen. He's really solid. He's nice. Arc in the Black, redonkulous for his cost. Just an amazing caster with everything you want out of a Lord. Has summons, has support, isn't that bad. In combat, has pretty insane leadership. He's amazing. Arcan's amazing. Kalita, horrible for their cost. Way too expensive, trash duelist, trash everything. I know there's some Kalita stands out there, but she is horrible, you guys. You just have to accept it. Concept costs about what he should. No real insights there. He's just a caster lord. He's relatively cheap. He does okay. Setcher the Imperishable, bad for his cost. He costs you an arm and a leg for a meh lord. I kind of want to put him in horrible, but I think too many people would get too mad at me for that one, so I'll put him there. Basic Tomb King. Okay, Cetra's better than him, so I am going to put him down here. He's also expensive, but he provides even less than Cetra does. Heinrich Kemmler, he's going up in the good. He's in the good. Has better regen auras that weren't nerfed with the Vampire Counts nerfs. Krell's a really good summon that lasts forever. Heinrich's good. He's solid. He's very tanky, too. Isabel's bad for her cost, unfortunately. A lot of her stuff is better in 2v2 than 1v1. She's kind of built around hanging out with Vlad, and Vlad's another lord. So when she's left on her own, she's just meh. Not very good. We're almost done, I promise. Manfred von Karstein. With the recent glow-up of Death Magic, Manfred's actually probably good for his cost. He has a Death and Lore of Vampires, so you can take like Fate of Buna plus Invocation to heck on a zombie summon, and you can just wreck kids. It's nice. Though he is Spency on his dragon, he's not that good of a duelist, but you get what you pay for, and he's good for his cost. Elmengorst is worth about what he should be. He's a slow Mortis engine that dies easily in duels, and that is what he is. I also think Vlad von Karstein is worth about his cost. He's kind of the Sigvald of the undead. He doesn't have a lot of agency in a game, but if you just don't want your lord to get sniped, yeah, he's around. He's fine. Master Necromancer, probably horrible for his cost at this point. There's just other people who do exactly what he does better. Strigoi Ghoul King, trash. Yeah, trash. He's a worse duelist than the Blood Dragon Lord, and the Blood Dragon Lord has a better breath attack than his mount, and they're roughly the same cost. That's just not good at all. Red Duke, oddly specific. I'm going to put him in bad for his cost because his big draw is El Sif. Right, let me find it. So you want El Sif. El Sif does minus 40 melee defense, which is fine, but minus 20 physical resistance. So if you're fighting someone that doesn't have physical resist, because it only affects lords or heroes, if you're fighting a mortal lord, non-demonic, the physical resist is probably going to go to waste. And outside of that, he's just worse than the Blood Dragon Lord at dueling. He's about as expensive. Yeah, he's trash. Vampire Lords in general, oh god. I love how certain lords mean to go through every single one, but the Vampire Lord gets lumped into one. I'm going to put them in good for their cost, referring to the Blood Dragon Lord. The Lamian Lord's also okay. The other Vampire Lords are not usually worth it. But, yeah. That's fine. Ancient Tree Man, bad for their cost, very expensive, very slow. Duelist. I don't think they're that good. Drycha, costs about what she should. She's cheap, she runs forward, she goes, wah, and kills some stuff. That's good. Good for her. Good lore of magic, good summon, etc. But not incredible. Durthu, I think he's worth about his cost. He is fine. He's a fine Wood Elf Lord. The main problem is he's just synergistic with the rest of the faction, but that's not his fault. As far as a Lord goes, as far as his kit goes, as far as his cost goes, those all kind of match up that he is worth about his cost. He just doesn't match what the Wood Elves want to be doing in most games. Ziglady, fine, has a net, helps out missiles, does that on her own. Otherwise, she is not very good. Male Glade Lord, bad for your cost. You are a melee buff boy on a faction that does not have a lot of melee stuff. Orion, I'm also going to go with bad for his cost. He has been getting a bit of a comeuppance recently. Well, no, that's not the right word. Whatever. He's a little more common right now, a little bit, but he's still not a great duelist for how expensive he is. His range attack needs some help. Sisters of Twilight, I'm going to go with horrible for their costs. Again, it's another spicy take, but they just like... Archer Lords in general have taken such a hit coming in Game 3. I haven't noticed Sisters doing anything. They're really expensive. And it's like, yay, we have some healing. Bro, healing's already the most powerful it's ever been. Like, your caster's probably going to be a healing caster anyway. They can just heal cap you into regrowths. Why would I pay to have you maybe save yourself when you get low? I don't give a shit. Then we have a Spellweaver. I'm going to put them in good for their cost because Eagle Mounts are really, really strong. But I could see an argument being made they're worth about their cost. Just nice, solid support lord. But the Eagle Mounts do make them pretty good duelists. That is my cost-effective buy lord, buy tier, buy list, buy. That took a long time. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And if you didn't, then don't tell me because this took a long time. So I don't need your negativity. I don't need it. I don't need it. Queek best lord. Queek best lord. Get him up there. Get him up there. Get all these fucking things out of here. Get him out of here. Oh shit, no. Queek, come back. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. It's just Queek. Queek's the best. Queek's at the top. Nobody can match him. Okay, goodbye. Roar. Subscribe, yes.